Good morning to all who have joined us this morning for this roundtable. I think it goes without saying that the numbers that have taken time out to attend this roundtable speaks for the importance of the topic. We've had in the last few days alone addresses from the president on the topic. We've seen a number of experts wade into the debate, NGOs at the coalface talking from their perspective, and it just speaks to the one of the real signs of the time. And so we're delighted that we are able to host this webinar at the Catholic Parliamentary Liaison Office, which, as many of you know, is an office that exists to facilitate discussion around legislative and policy issues as they come before Parliament, and in that way to deepen the participatory democracy and strengthen civil society's participation in parliamentary processes. So we're grateful that you've joined us. A particular gratitude to our panelists who've joined us this morning and from whom we hope to learn much, but also whom we hope will trigger a discussion later in the morning. We are a faith-based community, and it is our tradition to begin our times of contestation, of interrogation, of elucidation with a time of silence, time of meditation, of prayer, of reaching into the depth of our being. So may I invite you to join me in a time of silence. Thank you very, very much. And we are going to begin our inputs.
Just want to confirm if my screen is showing.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity for myself and for the Healthy Living Alliance to be represented in this really important webinar. I was hoping to be able to rely on a bit of baseline information about the early childhood development and the importance of it from the other panelists, but that is not a problem. And really today we are going to be focusing on the unhealthy food marketing that we're seeing directed at children and why it is such a cause of concern when it comes to early childhood development. So just to introduce myself, I'm Angelica Grimbeck. I am representing the Healthy Living Alliance today. I am a registered dietitian and have a master's in community pediatrics from the University of Witwatersrand. And I've been working for HeLa, which is a civil society advocacy organization that's really trying to push food justice in South Africa. What we mean by that is that we want every single South African and every person living in South Africa to have equitable access to nutritious food. So we do so with really trying to implement food policies that protect people from the unhealthy food environment that we are living in. So really just focusing in on that today. And also then again, like I said, the point of the conversation that I'll be leading today is really just showcasing the unhealthy food marketing that's directed at children and how much of a risk this is for early childhood development and also development going forward as the child gets older. Sorry, I just need to see now how to change there we go. So, I mean, we know in South Africa that there is this double burden of malnutrition, that on the one hand, there's severe stunting that is happening and has been stagnant for so many years, where almost 1 in 3 children in South Africa are stunted, they're chronically malnourished, and we know that this has lifelong effects for their health, for their development, for their prosperity. So there really needs a lot of effort needs to happen to be able to actually counter the stunting that is happening in South Africa. But on the other hand, we also know that there is an overweight and obesity crisis that's hitting our children now, where unfortunately, I mean, these stats are from 2016, and I'm sure the updated stats are showing similar numbers, if not worse, that 1 in 8 children, or 13% of under 5-year-olds in South Africa, are already overweight or obese. This again, it leads to so many health issues later on in life, throughout their childhood, throughout their adulthood. And it really puts them at higher risk of developing lots of non-communicable diseases that we know is a really big problem already. And then on top of that, we also know that only 32% of babies are exclusively breastfed up until 6 months, meaning that 2 out of 3 children are actually receiving formula. And we know that breastfeeding, again, is really, really important to be able to protect children from many diseases, to help them grow to the level that they need to. And we need to just see the concerted efforts being proposed by government to actually protect children with all of these levels of malnutrition that we are seeing. So, I mean, this picture really paints, says 1,000 words of what kind of foods are becoming more and more available to children, to adults, to everyone in South Africa. And the South African food environment is really skewed towards unhealthy food choices. And we know that, children are exposed to lots of different foods, whether it be starting from infant products all the way up until all the foods that they eat when they start complementary feeding and in their childhood. But we know that also there's a lot of influence coming from, obviously, their caregivers of what is available, how is food accessed in the household. And the problem that we've been seeing within the last 2 decades, and even a little bit longer, is that the ultra-processed world, or the processed foods, are really becoming more accessible to people, and really decreasing the amount of diversity and nutritious foods that people and children are having access to. And again, the problem with these foods, and this picture again shows the huge range of these processed and ultra-processed products, and they really are available everywhere to everyone. You can buy them on the side of the road, you can buy them in spaza shops, you can buy them in supermarkets, you can buy them even at schools, and even probably they are available in lots of ECD centers. So really the accessibility and the affordability issues of nutritious food are also really an important factor that we need to take into account of what actually people are eating and what children are eating. But very, very importantly, and another aspect that needs to be explored and that I will focus on, is just the very clever marketing and advertising from the food and beverage industry of these ultra-processed products, and how they use many different strategies to target children directly, their caregivers, or even just broader society to make more sales of their products and boost their profits. And the problem with this is that they have done so in very clever, but also very predatory ways that have actually made more people conditioned to believing that the products that are available to us are the foods that we should be eating, which we know is not the case. So, we've created this timeline of just some of the, what I like to call the scandals of the 2020s, of just really looking into some of the reports that have come out in the last 5 years, some of the big marketing events that have been exposed, and what really is happening to young children, and how these industries are targeting young children specifically to sell more and more of their products. So really, some of these things started way before, and I do just want to acknowledge that there's plenty of other examples. Gila has actively been involved in exposing some of these, or being part of these campaigns. So these are just the ones that I'll have time to talk about today. But I do also, if anyone in the audience has any other examples of this child-directed marketing that we can add to this scandalous timeline, then please do share. And yeah, it's just to show the sort of the approach that we've been able to take. So starting off in 2021, I'm not sure if anyone was aware of the Not Today Nestle campaign that was led by civil society and many very important infant and young child feeding and ultra-processed food or food environment academics. So basically what happened was, on the 10th of August, there was an advertisement put out in Drum, You, and True Love magazines of the Stockville Mum and Child Forum that was going to happen on a Saturday online. And really, this was an event that was hosted by Nestle to promote three of their products, the Nestum, Nido, and Cerelac products. There were a lot of problems with this specific event, and this is why it was picked up so aggressively by civil society and why it was really a cause of concern. So, firstly, it violated many of the regulations and the restrictions of marketing that are found in the R991, a regulation that exists to protect children from the harmful marketing of infant formulas and products. So there was that whole issue. The other issue was that they used a lot of emotive language and a lot of sort of invasive techniques to draw people in. So firstly, the use of the word stokvel. I mean, we know in South Africa, stokvels are lifelines for many, many South African households to buy essential household items. And so to use that in a way to advertise a product that's not actually necessary for children to actually consume. They're quite expensive products. There's also the risk of over dilution and all sorts. There were lots of problems with just using the word stokvel. What they also did was they had a PhD nurse on the panel. So it really just tried to enforce this idea that healthcare workers are endorsing these products and that whatever is going to be said in this event is something that can be trusted because a healthcare worker is part of the discussion. Of course, then they also had representatives from Nestle there as well. And then on top of it as well, there was just this big discussion of how these products are ultra processed and really not actually necessary as part of the of a normal diet for children from the age of 6 months. So really there was this outcry from civil society, and it was incredible how over 3 days there was this huge mobilization that happened. The infant and young child feeding experts joined forces with the food environment experts. They created a very comprehensive letter that they sent out internationally to be able to get public support to and more expert support to cancel this event. They spoke to in the National Department of Health directly to showcase that it was a violation of the R991. They also then spoke to other partners like UNICEF, etc., to be able to get that support. Then HEALA was able to also mobilize resources and create a public-facing sort of campaign to add to this. So there was a lot of media engagement. The Daily Maverick was also able to take on this story and really expose Nestle and this whole issue and the Stokvel event. There was also a petition that was created by Amandla.Mobi to really, again, just garner more public support on why it is important to cancel this event, but also to expose the industry for what they're doing. So it was a big success. I mean, on the 13th of August, the day before the webinar was supposed to take place, or the event was supposed to take place, Nestle came out and said, okay, fair enough, we will cancel this event. But they also did say that they don't believe that they have violated the R991. They also alluded to this correspondence with the National Department of Health as if they are buddies with them. And so they did a lot of things that, although they did cancel the event, they still tried to maintain their reputation, saying that we haven't done anything wrong. So it is a big success, but more needs to be done to eliminate this exposure before we see any kind of reaction. Then in the years to follow, so in 2022 and 2023, two really important reports were released by the World Health Organization and the Lancet. And within the World Health Organization report, it was really, really an incredible report that showed how the CMF industry worldwide, or the infant formula industry, uses many, many, many tactics to influence caregivers, communities, individuals on how they should be feeding their children. So they really showcase quite an important aspect of digital marketing that is coming up quite a lot nowadays, as well as really, really shockingly of how the industry is now strategically using the health sector or the healthcare sector to be able to target healthcare workers that then eventually would have a different influence of how they recommend feeding to infants and young children, and of course, undermining breastfeeding efforts. What this report was really also really good at with their messaging was just showcasing how powerful these industries are, and that they are $55 billion worth industries. So just, I mean, the amounts of influence they have on policies and everything is really important to note. And that also was then showcased again in 2023 with this Lancet series on breastfeeding, again, highlighting why breastfeeding is so important for ECD, as well as then also just showcasing these commercial milk formula efforts to market their products and how they do so to individuals and communities, etc. So then 2024, last year, came about, and it seemed that Nestle wanted to cause another bit of scandal. So there's a group called Public Eye they are based in Switzerland. They are basically a organization that is just a watchdog around these different industries, and especially big manufacturers of products. And I mean, they range from further from food and beverage industries, but also to, I mean, all the different industries. And they really just watch that specific organizations like Nestle that are also headquartered in Switzerland, what they are doing around the world and how they are intentionally exposing children and others to harmful products, basically. So this report, so I have just to note, I have added in this QR code if anyone's interested in reading this report. It's really very thorough. But basically, a big thing that came out of it was that Nestle is intentionally exposing young children to sugar and hooking them on sugar in low-income countries. So, for example, in South Africa, that was one of the countries that was part of this report, and there were many others in Africa and in Asia as well, that the one biscuit flavored baby cereal contains 6 grams of sugar in our South African products, while the same product that's sold in Switzerland and in other high income countries have no added sugar to it. So really, again, just showcasing how these industries are using market saturation and thinking about where they can develop new customers, looking at the world, seeing how they can hook children and have these young children exposed to their products high in sugar, hooking them and getting them addicted to these products, and then creating this almost cradle to grave technique of getting consumers from a young age. And this is obviously very shocking. It is a huge problem because we know, especially with a company like Nestle, that they don't just have formula products, they have products that range the whole lifespan. So really up until elderly products. So really, it is very shocking that they would use this cradle to grave technique. This report also then just looked into the other kind of marketing tactics that they use. So false scientific claims, claiming that their products can make a baby smarter, can make them stop crying, things like that are completely false. And then also just the online predatory marketing that they use. So again, civil society came to the table and really tried to fight and expose this report and provide more information to people. And then again, enough pressure was put on Nestle that the Nestle Southern African spokesperson did come out and say, okay, you got us again. We'll try our best to have a phased removal of added sugars from these products by the end of 2024. And worldwide as well. So really, again, I mean, it just showcases how it is very important to have these moments where we can expose the industry. But if they're not exposed, then how far will they go and for how long will they do these things without actually making a change before they get sort of forced into it through this public exposure? And then finally, in 2025, of course, we needed the food and beverage industry to give some kind of other scandalous event to happen. And this is a really shocking one where, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the media reports on this and just the debate that's happened around this. Of McDonald's partnering with the Department of Basic Education to provide these My Desks to schools in the Western Cape. Of course, this is very problematic to have children become basically billboards, be forced into advertising unhealthy foods. And so again, civil society joined together to create a joint statement about why this is such an issue and why we cannot allow these types of things to happen. And I've added this into this presentation, although we know that the focus is around early childhood development, that we know that there's a lot of effort to be putting in early childhood development centers into the National School Nutrition Program. So we do need to start thinking of what is happening in the schooling system and how it can actually filter down to the ECD centers eventually and how it's going to influence what children are exposed to. So I know that sometimes it's very easy to complain about things, but there is really a solution for all of these scandals. And it does come with a lot of regulation and policies. So it is important to note that we there is hope that we can actually protect children against this harmful marketing and these harmful techniques that the industry uses. So, I mean, again, I've already mentioned, and I'm sure many people in the room are aware of the R991, the regulation relating to the foodstuffs for infants and young children that has been around since 2012. This really has a comprehensive list of restrictions of how the infant formula industry is not allowed to market their products and specific products as well to children and caregivers and obviously infants and young children. And then also there is an element of how the healthcare system also needs to be protecting those children through marketing. So it's a really great regulation. It's incredible that we have it. It's based on the International Code of Marketing of breast milk substitutes, but it is quite outdated at this point. 13 years on, there has been a big push of different types of loopholes that the industry uses to be able to market their products, specifically things like the digital space. Again, that shocking revelation that there's now like healthcare workers are being targeted. So we do need to see that this regulation is updated to make sure that all of those loopholes are tightened. And then on the other hand, when it comes to more of the sugar dumping, the sugar content, the unhealthy nutrient content in food, and how that is more and more children are being exposed to these ultra processed products. The Department of Health 2 years ago released a draft regulation, the R3337, where they are proposing a front of package warning label system to be placed on packaged foods. And any food products that are high in sugar, salt, saturated fat, or contain any artificial sweeteners will have a front of package warning label placed on the packaging. This is really an important measure just to help consumer awareness of what is actually in these ultra processed and processed foods. I think a lot of people don't actually understand why they are bad for us, especially because they are marketed so heavily and so accessible. And really, what's wonderful about this regulation is that it has been implemented in different formats in many different countries. So, for example, in Chile, they have had a front of warning package system, as well as then included marketing restrictions on these products and that they are not allowed to have any of these products sold or within the schooling system. And what they've seen is that there's a really great behavior change seen in young children. So there's research that has shown that children will actually say to their parents if they see a warning, a product that has a warning label on it in the basket, to say, "Why are you buying this for us? We don't want it. This is bad for our health." So really, I mean, the potential that this regulation has and this front of package warning label system has is hopeful. Within this regulation as well, and this is my last slide, is that there is marketing restrictions that have been proposed based on the products that would have a warning label on it. So, for example, the products with warning labels, they've said that it can't be marketed to children. The marketing restrictions that they've proposed are also mandatory, so avoiding that idea that the industry can have any kind of voluntary choice, because we've seen time after time that with many of the pledges that they have, with many of the sort of corporate social responsibility initiatives that they have, it's all voluntary, and so they don't often actually enforce it. They also have said that children are defined up until the year 18 years old, which is amazing. Then if a product has an FOPL label on it, they will not be allowed to use any kind of pervasive techniques that appeal to children in the advertisement. So, for example, you won't be allowed to have any cartoon characters on the packaging or in adverts. You won't be allowed to use any sports stars or celebrities. You can't have a free gift that is part of that. And then also within adverts, you're not allowed to abuse any kind of positive family values that might appeal to children. And then, of course, any kind of warning label needs to actually be part of the advert. So there are a few kind of marketing restrictions proposed, but it's not to say that that is enough. We really need to look at what the recommendations from World Health Organization, UNICEF, and other bodies are saying is the best approach in marketing. And then really also just expand these mandatory marketing restrictions. So really looking into things like no children should be allowed in adverts, banning the branding and sale of FOP products in child-centered settings. So again, like schools or sporting events, etc. Broadcasting rules should be enforced of when these kind of foods can actually be advertised, or whether these foods should be advertised at all. That nutritional education should not be coming from the industry. We know that this nutritional education is often very biased, as well as then very product driven. There should be things about restricting point of sale marketing and then prohibiting sponsorships in general to really, really then be able to protect children. So whether this can happen through the R337 or should be a standalone sort of a new policy agenda is something that's still up to debate. But it is something that is very, very important that we start implementing from the R991 all the way until other childhood protective policies and regulations that are in place. So thank you so much. I will be ready and waiting for any questions and reflections later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very, very interesting and a little challenging, even for those of us who are older. Um, uh, I'm not sure if we have sorted out the tech problems, Vita. Have we? Can I have some indication, please?
Tabita has rejoined.
Good morning.
Okay, great, Tabita. Over to you. We will take questions later on all three speakers. So we happy to hand over to you, Tabita. Thank you.
All right.
You have 20 minutes. Thank you.
Can you see my slides? Hello?
We can see. Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tabita Twati. I work for Ikamba Labantu in Cape Town. I've been working for Ikamba Labantu as an ECD facilitator and an assessor for 10 years now. We work in townships around Kailicha, Guguletu, Delft, and Mfuleni. Today I'm going to present about critical importance of the foundation phase in child development and the long-term investment in the early years. So when the former Department of Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga was endorsing the South African National Curriculum Framework in 2014, she said delays in cognitive and overall development before schooling can often have long-lasting and costly consequences for children, for families and society. And the most effective and cost-efficient time to intervene is before birth and early years of life. So investment in early childhood development should be a key priority. The foundation phase in child development, typically spanning from birth to 8 years, is indeed critically important. During this phase, children develop essential skills, habits, and values that shape their future success, well-being, and happiness. Let's talk about brain development. Babies are born with millions of brain cells, and most of the wiring of these cells is completed during the first 3 years of their lives. All experience children have in these first few years helps build the brain connections that guide their development. The kind of care that a child receives plays a big role in how the brain wires itself. The baby years are a time of rapid brain development, and babies need love, they need care and stimulated experiences to ensure their healthy development. So we have key developmental areas that I'm going to talk about now. The following developmental areas are building blocks for children. talking about physical development, the social development, the emotional development, language, and cognitive development. With physical development, children develop gross and fine motor skills. They develop these fine motor skills, they lay groundwork for future physical abilities. With social and emotional development, children learn to regulate their emotions. They learn to develop empathy and form relationships with others. And again, with cognitive development, the foundation phase sees significant advancements in problem solving, in critical thinking, and also creativity. With language development and literacy, all babies have the capacity to learn about language and communication in the first few years than at any other time. It is therefore essential that we offer them the most stimulating and communicative environment that we can, one that is filled with sounds and people who talk to them, people who read to them and sing to them. So what are long-term benefits? The long-term benefits are your academic access. When we talk about academic access, we talk about a solid foundation in language, in literacy and numeracy that sets children up for success in school and beyond. Social and emotional learning, the well-being of children who develop the well-being of children. Children who develop strong social and emotional skills are better equipped to navigate relationships, to manage stress, and maintain mental health. And resilience and adaptability. A strong foundation phase helps children develop strong resilience and adaptability that enables them to cope with challenges and changes throughout life. Career opportunities and life opportunities. A well-developed foundation phase can open doors to future career and life opportunities as children are better prepared to take advantage of educational and social experience. They also build positive relationships and community engagements. These children develop strong social skills and emotional intelligence. They are more likely to form positive relationships and engage actively in their communities. So how to support a strong foundation phase? By providing a nurturing environment that offers a safe, supportive, and loving environment that encourages exploration and learning. Engaging in play-based learning by using play to promote learning and development, as it helps children develop essential skills and values. By fostering a growth mindset, encouraging children to view challenges as opportunities for growth and learning. Encourage socialization. Provide opportunities for children to interact with others. Seek professional support if a parent is concerned about a child's development. They may seek support from professionals such as pediatricians, therapists, or early childhood educators. By recognizing the critical importance of a foundation phase and providing supportive environments, we can help children develop a strong foundation for future success. In conclusion, investing in the foundation phase sets children up for lifelong success. Supportive environments help children grow into well-rounded individuals. By nurturing the early years, we secure a brighter future for all. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Tabitha. It was so worth waiting for. And I'm glad we sorted out those problems so as to be able to benefit from your insightful presentation. So, thank you.
Thank
Our
you.
last speaker or panelist for today, Richard. I wonder if you, oh, there you are. Thank you. It's over to you, sir.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. By way of introduction, my name is Richard Lundy. I'm the program lead at Sequoia, which is an initiative of Common Good. And Common Good is a faith-based organization based in Cape Town that was started about 20 years ago. Now, I know that you are all here today because you are passionate about or interested in or somehow involved in the field of ECD. And this topic affects every single one of us. And I know that you're all here because you know that the future of our country is somehow connected to our children. And so I want to be focusing in on the first 1,000 days of life, and in particular, what faith communities can be doing to support and strengthen families with children in this particular stage of life. There's a powerful quote by Rafi Kavakian who says, "When you pay attention to the beginning of the story, you can change the whole story." And I do have some slides that I'm about to put up there. Ask if I could have screen sharing rights, please. Um, but when we pay attention to the beginning of the story, we can change the whole story. And so when I'm talking about the beginning of the story, I'm talking about this time known as the first 1,000 days. And it's a window of time in a child's life from conception up to the age of 2. And this stage sees the brain developing at a once in a lifetime pace. It's Tabitha mentioned it, it's building so rapidly, right? At the end of this period, by the time the child reaches 2, the brain will be at 80% of its adult size. And so much is happening inside the brain that we can't see with our eyes, but what scientists and what doctors are able to do with scanning technology is telling us how important of a time this is in a baby's life. At the time at its peak, the neurons in the brain are connecting it up to 1 million times per second. And neural plasticity, and Tabitha mentioned this, the ability of neurons to form connections for future learning, it's reaching its peak in this time, never to be repeated in life. And so this rapid connection links together different parts of the brain. And so that we learn in this stage, not only normal everyday tasks, but also incredibly complex tasks for the child then and further into the future. I'm talking about things like expressing emotions, reasoning, applying logic, speaking languages, recognizing faces, and so on. Now, the more integrated and widely connected the brain is, the more there is for the brain to build on for new learning. You could look at it as being the foundations for future flourishing in language and literacy, social connections, emotional regulation. Those foundations are being laid in the time when the child is the youngest, in the early days from conception to the age of 2. And it's because the brain is rapidly growing and rapidly maturing in this stage. The brain is particularly sensitive to the experiences that he or she experiences in that time. And so it makes sense that investing in children during this stage is crucial because it gives them the best possible foundation for future health and learning. Now, when investment is absent during these first 1,000 days, that brain foundation is compromised and has lifelong impact. And in many ways, what you see on the screen here is that the foundation for development is shaped by the experiences in the first 1,000 days. Sufficient and consistent care will set the child on a pathway that is marked by thriving. That insufficient or inconsistent care can put additional challenges in the way of the child that he or she has to overcome throughout their life course. And so it raises the important question, what do children need in this particular stage of life to get that solid brain foundation? And this is described in the nurturing care model. And this was a summary of over 1,100 studies from over 100 countries, asking the question and answering it, what do children need to thrive? And you can see the descriptions there on the screen. And I'm going to underline it again. If a child consistently gets these 5 things during their first 1,000 days, they're on that pathway of thriving. Inconsistent care or insufficient sets them up for additional challenges and additional struggles. And so that's why we say that the beginning of life really matters. Now, it's natural for us when we're focusing on this young child that we need to focus as well on the adult, the caregiver in the child's life, because babies cannot provide those 5 things for themselves. And so we need to be paying close attention to the adults in the baby's life. They are the ones who have the opportunity and the responsibility to provide the kind of care that baby needs to get a good brain foundation. Now, it's very easy for us to be able to blame parents or point fingers at them for the state of our nation's children. But we must remember that parenting is hard. For parents who are on the Zoom call, you'll know what I'm talking about. And all parents, they have existing strengths, they have skills, they have resources that they can draw on. But still, all parents need some kind of support in order to provide what their child needs. And some parents need all the support that they can get. When we consider the landscape in South Africa, it won't take us long to recognize that there are many challenges and barriers that parents face that negatively impact their capacity to provide this nurturing and responsive care that baby needs. There might be challenges inside the parents, him or herself. And by the way, when I say parents, I'm also including those adult caregivers. We know many children are raised by extended family, and so this applies to those adults as well. But the challenges that adults face might be in themselves, perhaps some mental illness challenges or health challenges. There may be challenges that families face that are inside the household, relational breakdown, violence, joblessness, and so on. And there are also many factors in the broader community that can negatively impact parents' capacity. Things like gang violence and poor service delivery, unsanitary environments, and so on and so on. And so it raises the question, what can be done to support and strengthen parents so that they can provide what their young child needs? Now, Common Good, as I mentioned, which formed Cplo, we began to realize the importance of the first 1,000 days in 2013. And we launched a pilot program with pregnant mothers in Cape Town. And we identified this incredible impact that a caring and supportive community can have on a mother and father's ability to respond to babies' needs. And by the end of 2016, we reviewed our pilots and reviewed our plans and strategy. And we kept coming back to the question, what about the local church? As a faith-based organization, we wanted to answer the question, what is the role of the local church, and at this time it was just in Cape Town, to support the first 1,000 days of a child's life? Part of our research involved engaging 194 different people through interviews, telephonic and in person. We had focus groups and 2 literature reviews. We learned from church leaders, denominational leaders, ECD practitioners, and mothers of young children. And we collated this data from this work and spent months analyzing it. And the findings were clear and very kind of informed our conviction that we are deeply convinced that the church is uniquely positioned and equipped to make a significant impact in nurturing our children's full potential by supporting their development in the first 1,000 days. Now, this report was released in 2018, and in 2020, it was published internationally in the Christian Journal for Global Health. And that has opened up the doors for us to reach denominations and churches in other countries. And as I mentioned, this research underpinned our work, shaping our innovation and ensuring that we are informed by reliable sources as we develop programs for local churches. But you might be asking the question, what is unique about the local church? What is different, or what can the local church do? And I want to spend a couple of minutes just unpacking that. Well, first of all, the local church is a social actor that has existing assets. Churches in various shapes and sizes, they know how to do life together, know how to gather, to connect, to make meaning of life, to provide sanctuary, to bless each other, to pray with each other, to be present over the long term. Now these assets, and I know I've raced through a lot of them, I'm underlining this reality that these assets exist in every single church and can be leveraged to impact families for good. Now, in addition to these assets, churches have existing practices. Across denominations, there are things that churches regularly do that can incorporate support and care for families with children in their first 1,000 days. In many church practices, for example, it's normal and perhaps even expected that congregants are visited at home or perhaps visited during big life events. And this practice is a great opportunity to reach and serve families in this crucial life stage of the first 1,000 days. Churches also have remarkable reach and are often willing to serve outside of their own congregation. They're also culturally aware and sensitive and are able to speak into various parenting practices in ways that are suitable for that church or that community and that context. Now, these are just a few reasons why local churches are well positioned and already equipped to play a unique role. But there are many other role players that have an essential part to play. We think of the Department of Health, NGOs, social services, the workplace. All of these parties are to work together in what we call a whole of society approach, in working together to see that children thrive and reach their full potential. But let me focus a little bit more on the church. I'm not saying the church does everything or it completes all of the responsibilities. It is playing their unique part. You see, churches are unique, every single one of them in a different context with different denominational practices, a different range of people in their church. There's such diversity. And the model that Secunia has is not so much a pick up and play and implement it in your church, but it's more of ideas so that churches can contextualize and adapt it for their own context. But what can churches be doing to strengthen and support families? Well, there's three primary things that we see churches can be doing. First of all, it's providing supportive relationships. There's such power in a caring, positive adult being present in the life of a family. Research has shown that what does it take for a child growing up in poverty or poverty community to be able to exit poverty? And they discovered in researching this that it takes a caring and attentive adult, one other positive and engaged adult in the child or family's life, and moderate levels of opportunity. And we see that the church can be putting in place those supportive relationships for families and can engage with families in ways that strengthen them and builds resilience in family. I could go into a lot more detail about resilience, but this idea that people can bounce back from adversity and difficulty, one of the key factors of building resilience is a supportive community to help you get back on your feet. And so we see churches can put in place these caring relationships. The next thing is information and skills. Well, helping parents know what they can do to build a good, solid brain foundation. And what we do is we help churches with resources to underline or emphasize what they are already hearing from health professionals. It's not another message, it's the same message heard from people that they trust and are sitting with them and journeying with them through life. And so when I think about what Angelica spoke about, churches have this opportunity to raise their voice about breastfeeding practices, and that can counter some of the community myths or beliefs that, it's aspirational to buy formula because it makes it look like you've arrived. Churches can use their existing voice to speak against that kind of thing and emphasize the importance of exclusive breastfeeding, for example. Now, the third thing we encourage churches to do is point parents to services from professionals. Churches don't have to start their own clinic, for example, but they can be a link in the chain of care from the parent to the service provider in their community. And they can be there when a family needs help and perhaps does not know where to turn. The church can be referring them and connecting them to the NGO, the government facility, or various practitioners. I want to share just one brief story of how this looks in action. We have a program where we train volunteers from the church to go and visit a family in their home at key moments during the first 1,000 days. And during this training course, one of the volunteers that was being trained went to go visit a family and discovered that the 16-month-old child had not yet gone onto solids. And this volunteer, not a dietitian, but knew immediately, hey, this is out of line. There's a flag here, and so encouraged mom to go and visit the clinic. And the mom had been avoiding the clinic. There's a long story that I don't need to go into now, but didn't feel like she could go to the clinic. And the visitor then encouraged mom and supported her to access the support of that professional at the clinic, who then advised mom on how to get onto solids when baby was 16 months old. And so we found out a little while later that the visitor visited again. How's baby doing? And the clinic was very happy with how baby was returning to the milestones that she had been missing because she hadn't yet progressed onto solids. Now, this is just one small example out of many, but it demonstrates that every family story is unique. And information from a clinic might be heading towards the mother, but not received. And so we encourage the supportive community, supportive relationship to be sharing information that helps that information land because the person is listening to someone that they trust and they respect. Now, what does Sequoia do to support churches and strengthen them? First of all, we raise awareness about the first 1,000 days. Many church leaders are unaware, and it's the first time they've heard about the first 1,000 days. So we do a range of things to help them move from unaware to aware, and then to make some kind of pledge or commitment to say, we're going to do something about this inside our church practices. One of our programs called Church and Early Life, it helps church leaders connect what their biblical motivation, what science is telling us about the first 1,000 days, and what they can be doing. One of the church leaders shared this quote over WhatsApp with us saying, to think of how we, most churches, include or involve baby during a dedication and then shelve them until they start Sunday school. Infants are a part of the community of faith. And for her, it was a big aha moment of, wow, I have this belief that God loves young children, but our practices didn't match our belief. And so we raise awareness, and then for churches that want it, we then offer a range of equipping workshops and training, normally around information and skills that they can use to reach parents. And this ranges from very topical things like how you can encourage parents to provide stimulation, to be to mention that earlier, and also looking at very specific thing, being trained to visit or how to reach fathers in your community and so on. And then we also have, informational resources that we host on our data-free website that churches can then easily forward on to parents to keep them up to date. And we connect with church leaders to encourage them and help them learn from each other to best serve parents. There's no cost to joining the Sequoia Network, and most of our work is online via Zoom, like this platform, via WhatsApp, and the occasional in-person events that we host in different parts of the country. We launched in 2019, and we then rapidly hit lockdown and went online. And so most of our material spread across the country at a rapid rate. At the end of last year, we had reached 1,400 churches who have made that pledge or that commitment to caring for families. Latest stats that didn't make it onto the slide is we've just crossed over the 1,600 church marker. And these are churches across denominations in different areas across the country, different languages, different practices, as diverse as you can possibly imagine. And as we look at the churches that are part of the network, most of them are in the less financially resourced communities. They have many other resources, but not so much financial resources. And our future strategy involves reaching more churches and more churches part of denominational structures. Now, I know I've gone flying through this, and I'm looking forward to hearing questions that you may have. But just to underline that we as Sequoia, we are committed to seeing thousands of faith communities use their existing strengths and assets to invest in young life. And the future that we want for our country, we know it's the future that you want as well. That's going to happen because of the collective effort of everyday citizens playing their parts in strengthening children, and giving them a strong start to life. We really do believe in this concept of it takes a village to raise a child. We know it's necessary and it's possible. And together we can write a story for our nation that is brighter because we're paying attention to the beginning of the story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Lots to take from that, as with the other panelists. So thank you very, very much.